for Anne, just request the links for those and we can get those out to you. So with that having been said and getting that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic off to Anne and let her begin today's presentation.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning, good noon, good afternoon to all of you that are on the call. Appreciate you taking the time to spend a few minutes with all of us taking a look at this. So we're going to be talking today about a tool that I think a lot of people could benefit from. I think most of you or some of you may know who WiSys is, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time discussing that. What I am going to do, however, is talk briefly about some of the things that WiSys can help you with and discuss specifically how we can improve your operations. So there's a slide up here with lots of bullet points, and it basically is a recap of many different ways that you can benefit from using some of the tools that WiSys has. We're going to focus on the two bullets that are in red today for the most part. We're not really going to talk about warehouse management and things like that. We'll touch on it for a minute, but we're going to concentrate on a specific area that we believe most Macola users or virtually all Macola users can benefit by using. So to do that, let me first explain something about what we call our technology stack. If you look at the diagram that's up, you'll see a layer in gray called the Macola database. That's all the tables that Macola has, obviously, for all the different modules that you own. On top of that, we have what we call our developers SDK. And these are business objects that interact with the database that we have written. So that when we create applications, which you're going to see shortly, with our adaptable framework, you can operate upon the database directly. So there's no synchronization, there's no two databases, there's nothing like that with WiSys. We are going to look at information that is directly in the database, and we're going to interact with that data, change that data, make entries into that data directly through the developer's SDK that's in the middle of all of this. So you're going to see us working with that today. Now, again, most of you or many of you are probably familiar with the WMS side of WiSys, and this is just a quick slide that shows you some of the basic functionality we have for the warehouse. But that is not specifically what we're going to talk about today. So I bring this up just to remind folks that we do have a full WMS system that's integrated with Macola and with all the versions. Instead, what we're going to focus on today is a tool called our Agility Explorer. And what it allows you to do is monitoring information in Macola by looking at it in various helpful views, analyzing information, and then executing at times upon that data, depending on what it is you want to do. These are all .NET 4 applications, and they work with M10, Macola ES, or Macola Progression. So they work with all the different flavors of Macola, and there is nothing that prevents you, if you're using Progression today, for instance, and contemplating moving to M10 later, there's nothing that prevents you from starting with Progression and WiSys today, and then very easily moving to M10. We have architected the product to make that transition very simple for you. So we're going to explore in our Agility Explorer tool. And one of the basic functions that we do and that makes it so helpful to people is we try to provide you with a more natural view of data. Many people like to work in a grid. So one of the fundamental functions in Agility is to be able to look at things and take action within a grid. The example that's here is our pick management screen, and we're going to come back to that toward the end of the presentation. But this screen just basically gives you an idea of a fundamental function that we have, which is what we call a process grid that lets us perform action against the Macola database in a very flexible and fluid way. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at data in real-time, meaningful, powerful ways. And we're going to use 4 typical supply chain type questions that we need to answer for you today. So everything that you look at today is within this Agility Explorer tool, and all of these different applications you see can be part of an M10 workspace. So if you are on M10 or contemplating going there and you're excited about the concept of a workspace, you can run these applications in the Agility Explorer user interface, or you can arrange them in workspaces as well and launch them from the workspace. So let's go and start taking a look at the 4 scenarios that I have to demonstrate for you today. So let's talk about common supply chain problems. One of the things that owners or management typically asks is the first problem. What orders did we get today? Or what did we say we were going to ship tomorrow? What did we say we were going to ship next week? And how can we do that easily in Macola today? Well, most of the time you're either looking at a lot of reports and shuffling information around. You're scrambling kind of to get a synopsis. And oftentimes management wants a high-level view of what we got today. Are we on target for this month? Are we getting close to where we should be for the month? In fact, I had a call just this morning from someone asking for this kind of a capability. So what we're going to do here is look at a real-time dynamic daily order calendar. So that's the first thing we're going to look at. The next scenario we're going to look at is this second scenario. So we did get a big order today, or we think we're going to get a big order, or I've got a salesman calling and saying, hey, I've got a customer that wants to do something, and this is a pretty good size order. Can we really fit that in and get it to them in the time that they want it? What do I need to do to be able to accomplish taking that large order? So again, in generic Macola, I'd probably be printing some reports. I'd be running around looking at inventory. I'd regen MRP. I'd run more reports. And then finally, after I analyzed everything, I'd place the orders. Here, we're going to take you to what we call our can build view. And from that view, we're going to assess what the impact would be of taking that large order. And I'm going to show you then how you can create purchase orders and production orders right from that view, so that you don't have to run lots of reports, you don't have to regen MRP, you can run it fairly easily and quickly. So now we're going to take the next scenario, number 3, and we're going to talk about, well, now I've received a lot of product in from my vendors, and now I need to pay those folks. Well, voucher entry in AP for people that match against their receivers has always been a rather tedious process. So I'm going to show you how to create vouchers from a grid of receivers. And I think those of you that work with the purchasing or AP department will like this quite a bit. And finally, as I promised a minute or two ago, when we finish up, we're going to come back to the order pick management grid. And this answers the question about which orders we should be shipping today or tomorrow or last week, how we want to fill back orders and actually get product out the door. Again, in Macola, I talk to people today, they take an order, they print a pick ticket immediately, and then they constantly shuffle those pick tickets around in order to try to determine what it is that they should be shipping. So we're going to show you what we believe is a much more streamlined way to do order management and fill back orders and print pick tickets. So those are the scenarios that we're going to explore today. So the first one that we're going to look at again is the daily order total calendar. And this is just a screenshot. When we send the slide deck out, people will be able to take a look at this. But what I'm going to do now is show you this particular application. So now I've switched into the Agility Explorer tool itself. And you'll notice here that the first thing I have is a filter for this calendar. We're going to give you a basic view of orders and the different types of statuses that they are in. So most of you that work with Macola order entry know that there's a booked status, which is status 1, and then there's picked, which means I run a picked ticket, status 4, shipped is status 7, billed is status 8, et cetera, et cetera. So we've given you the ability to choose the filter that you want, and then to have the calendar view give you a high-level view of the orders that you've taken or that are supposed to ship on given days. And what you'll see here is that if I go and take a look and click on the orders that I booked on the 16th, I get what we call a subsidiary grid or a child grid down below that actually shows me those orders. And if I want to, I can manipulate the calendar, move it up in case I have a big list down at the bottom. We hope everybody has a big list. Orders are always a good thing. So this is the ability to see things easily and in a summary form, and yet with a level of detail down below. So when the boss says, well, what did we book last week? What did we book this week? You know, when are we supposed to be shipping things? We've got details. So as I change dates and click on either the booked or the requested amount, I'm seeing the detail down below. In addition, when I'm in this lower grid, this child grid down below, if I want to open one of those orders, I can choose it by clicking on that row, and then I can click on the order button down at the bottom, and I can go and take a look at that order from here. And you'll notice from here that there are lots and lots of buttons on this screen. So I can look at inventory transactions associated with the order. I can look at the item master or the item location relative to the item that's on here. I can look at audit trails from here, order line audit trails. I can look at order header audit trails from here, all in one place. And if you get to the point that you're shipping product through WiSys, you can get shipment details right here and even produce pro forma invoices for customers. So basically, we've given you a dashboard from this calendar view that allows you to provide really awesome customer service to your people. And I've got tabs here that show me billing information and basic information, who I'm billing, etc. You're familiar with all this data from Macola's order entry system. So what we've done is empower it with other abilities to drill into relevant information about the order.
Hey, Ann, I'm going to jump in real quick because we just got a question that came in on chat, and I think it'd be good to address it while we have this screen up. And the question was, what do looking at this calendar view, some of the dates have stars, some of the dates have red dots. Could you explain what those differentiate?
Yes, absolutely. And I get that question a lot. You can set thresholds that you'd like to meet for daily orders, especially people want to set thresholds for what they've booked. So you can set a threshold, and when you hit a threshold, then you get some kind of an image. We just put a little blue star there. And if you don't hit the threshold, then you can get a different kind of an indicator. So it's kind of an alert, if you will, a quick way to glance at things. So that's what those means, and you can control those because there are thresholds that you can set.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so we've looked at the calendar. This is just a different way of looking at things. That's a natural, I think it's a very natural way, and people think that this is a very good way for customer service to interact with orders and for management to see what's going on in the business. You could construct other kinds of calendars as well. We've had people construct calendars of shop floor and labor, effort, things like that. So it's not just limited to order entry. This is just an example so that you get an idea about the power of some kind of a calendar view. So that's the first thing that we wanted to talk about. All right. The next thing we want to talk about is what WiSys calls our can build. And again, this is just an example from the slide deck of a can build screen. So let's see how that works. Let's go back to Agility. And now we're going to look at a grid that starts off as our inventory location master list. So this is like going to your inventory location table. So you can see that I have product here and it's stocked at various locations. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but one of the things I want you to understand is that the layout of this grid, the columns that you see, the order in which the columns appear, that can all be changed by the user. So if you don't care about fields, you can drop that field. If you want another field, you can add a field. So there's a column chooser capability. So there's lots of ability to configure this screen. You can move fields around. It's very easy to use. And when you start working within the top row here, as I start typing an item number, the grid immediately filters on that piece of information. So we're going to take a look at an item that I have called Bike PS. I have kind of a bike manufacturing operation that I'm doing here. And you can see that I have it at a California location, and I have it at an in-transit, and I have it at an East Coast location here as well. So again, like the order total calendar, I have lots of buttons that pertain to this particular order, or I'm sorry, to this particular item. And what we're going to focus on right now is this can build button, because we're playing a scenario here where a salesman has called and said, XYZ customer has gotten hold of me and they think they want to place an order for several hundred of these. What would happen to my inventory if I needed to make those? So what just appeared on the screen here is basically an indented bill of material showing me quantity per and the location and allocations and on hand and what is needed to make a single one of these. But I can go up to the top here in the desired build quantity, and let's just say that my salesman is really good and he's talked to the customer about the possibility of building 500 of these fairly quickly. Now what happens is the lines light up in red that I don't have sufficient stock for. I can even include allocations in the quantity available, or I can trigger shortages based on reorder levels if I want to. But for the sake of argument today, what we're going to do is focus on this item here. I don't have enough nuts. I need to order nuts. You can see that I need them. They're red. So once I focus on that row for that product, down below, again, I have like a child grid that shows me replenishment orders, in this case, purchase orders that are coming in. And I've got some coming in this week and next week. 500, there's my PO, and 300. There's a couple of POs, but I still don't have sufficient quantities coming in. So I need to trigger yet another purchase order if I'm going to try to make this product. So when I'm sitting on the nut item up here in the indented bill, I'm going to click on replenishments, and a screen opens that says, okay, let's create a purchase order. And how many am I going to order? 2,000, whatever I want. I can change the quantity here. Maybe I'll just order a few extras. And when do I want those? I want to have them no later than Monday. And I already have my vendor defined in Macola for this particular item. And I click OK, and I just created purchase order 199-00. So it was as easy as that to create a purchase order from this view. All righty? So once I go and print that purchase order, then I'll show another replenishment coming in down at the bottom here. So that's the idea of using a can build grid in order to be able to order product from the grid. Now let's take a look at another item. So I'm going to go back out here to my grid, and I'm going to tell it that I want to look at another item, and we'll run can build. Oops, let me focus on the frame, and I want to look at it at this particular location, because you can see I've got lots of frames at different locations. And I'm going to look at the can build here, and I'm going to show you an example. Again, same kind of thing, where now we're going to actually create a production order. So I've got my little ATP down at the bottom, available to promise. I don't have anything coming in, no replenishments. I have 500 on hand, or 498, sorry, 498, but I need more of them in order to be able to produce them. So again, I can now, by highlighting a production item, click on replenishments, and it's going to create a production order for me. In this case, I'm going to trust that the 498 is correct because I do cycle counting, and I'll just order 5 of them. And I can create and release that production order at the same time by checking that box. So the WiSys business object just kicked in, created and released that production order, and now I have a pop order that's been created as well. So this is how the can build can work. This doesn't work for everybody. We recognize that. But it can work for quick and easy things that you need to either purchase or make. So Greg, any questions that we need to answer specifically about this before we move on?
There is one. Is the create replenishment order driven by the order policy code or the demand for that order?
At this point, it's driven by the demand for this order. We are not looking at an order policy code. That is what MRP looks at.
Awesome. That's the...
But because a customer could, well, I was just going to say, but because if you understand how Macola works, they could tailor this if they wanted to and have it look at that. Out of the box, it does not. Okay?
Hold on, I think something just came up. You mentioned about integrating these on EM10 workspaces. Do the grids work exactly the same way?
Yes, they look the same way, act the same way. That's correct.
Awesome. Those are the two questions that have come in for this portion so far, so I think we can probably move on to the next slide.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about the capability that we have of creating AP vouchers from a grid of receivers and having it pop up then and actually create the header entry that needs to be made in order for you to put a voucher into accounts payable. Okay? So that's what we're doing next. Again, I've got a filter off to the left that lets me look by vendor, because typically you're going to create vouchers by vendor. So let's see what kind of receivers I have out here for vendor number 400. And I see that I have multiple different lines that have come in on multiple purchase orders, all for this particular vendor. So I've actually got a couple. I'm going to order this by PO number just by clicking on the header column. And now I've sorted it by purchase order number. And I've got 3 receivers here for purchase order 137 that have all come in at various times. You'll notice that there's more information over to the right. And again, because I have the ability to control what columns, the order in which columns appear, I could rearrange this grid and save it in the layout that I wanted. But once I've chosen those receivers that I want, then I have a button down at the bottom that will create the voucher for me. And this is going to pop up the little screen that you saw on the slide deck a minute ago. So we're required to put a batch number in, and it knows who the vendor is. So it looks at the terms. It looks at today's date and it wants to know the distribution date that I want for this. It, of course, allows me to put the vendor's invoice number in, and then I need to put in the dollar value. And I've got a spot for miscellaneous charges, freight charges, and sales tax charges. When I click the OK button, it's going to add that voucher to accounts payable. So let's just go over to accounts payable for a minute, since I actually entered something. And let's go take a look at this batch. And we'll just run this up to the screen. And up comes the voucher that I just created by item, because it knows the items that were created. It would create variances for you as well. So I created a voucher. Now that's ready to be reviewed in AP and posted, if it's all okay. So imagine if you've got lots and lots and lots of receivers here, how easy and quick that was to kind of reverse engineer the process by starting at the voucher end and dumping the data into Macola into AP, instead of going through that screen where you're line after line after line to match the receivers. It updates the receiver, updates the voucher. Any questions about this before we go on, Greg?
Excuse me, no, nothing came in during that segment, so we're good to go.
Okay. Also, because these screens are dynamic and interactive, if I refresh the grid, those lines disappear. So there's a little refresh up here in the corner. And for this kind of a grid, you would probably manually refresh it after you had done a transaction. With other grids, you can set the refresh rate yourself, and it will refresh automatically periodically. So perhaps on that order total calendar we looked at, you'd want that to refresh every 30 minutes or so, and it would update the quantities for you. So the ability to automatically refresh data makes this very dynamic for people. Okay, so the last scenario we had was the capability of printing picking tickets, filling back orders, looking at orders, and really being able to get orders ready for shipment in an effective way. So this is what we call our OE pick management screen. And you'll see on the right, again, a filter. We commonly use filters. And we have calendar controls over here. So am I looking to see orders that were, should ship this week, should ship next week, that I need to pick next month, this month? By running this grid, I can get a great idea of what's coming up and I don't have to run those pick tickets because I can see them in the grid. So let's first look at everything that we think we're going to run this month in the month of February. So I pick my calendar control, my date range, or I can manually enter dates as well. And I pick a location, and I get quite a number of orders and lines that I need to pick. Now, notice with the grid that I've got order numbers, I've got line numbers, order dates, promise dates, customer number, all of that. I also have links here, hot links to the item if I want to drill into that particular item. And then I have one column in the middle here that is kind of highlighted. It has bold heading and it has a box around it. That's the quantity that I'm actually going to ship. So I can see quantities here that are on hand. I can see quantities allocated and back orders. And it's telling me by highlighting in red the orders that were at least initially back ordered. So this item right here, the order went in on the 8th. It was supposed to have shipped. We promised it for the 11th. But at the time we took the order, we didn't have 500 of them. So I back ordered all 500. Now I have 575 on hand. So if that's an order that I want to fill, I can click that row and fill the back order right from here. If I decided I didn't want to ship the entire 500, I could have said, well, I'm going to give this customer 400 and give another 100 or 175 to someone else. So I have control of all of that. So rather than letting Macola fill back orders or doing it in a very manual process by stepping through your order lines, you can come to a grid like this. And what we have customers doing with this is sometimes grouping orders based on who the customer is or the priority of the customer. If they have a lot of demand and they don't have enough stock to fill all orders, they have certain high priority customers that should get product. Because I can sort, again, in so many different ways and group orders together, it's very easy for me to do things like that. Or maybe I want to sort based on how things are going to ship. I could look at that too. And again, I have lots of buttons down at the bottom so I can actually look at the orders, I can look at the items, and as I move my cursor around to an order, I get a detailed grid down at the bottom that again has its own buttons for looking at transactions and inventory location information that would be helpful to you as you're trying to make decisions. So I can fill back orders from here. In fact, I could take every order that I want and fill back orders simultaneously for all those orders if I wanted to, and then I could run my pick tickets for them. So in this example, we've got a couple of orders here. 841 is capable of having of shipping completely, and I think 830 is capable of shipping completely. So I can choose one or more or as many of the orders as I want, and then I can tell the system that I want to print a picking ticket for it, and what's going to come up is a crystal picking ticket that we ship out of the box. And hang on for just a minute. Here's what the picking ticket looks like. We barcode these so that you can scan the order number. If you're using WMS in order to be able to help pick your product, you can scan the order number, scan the item number. So there's my 2 pick tickets that I got. This one's got a couple items, the other one had 1. So I've now interacted with the information, picked those items, they disappear from my grid, and I move on to the next orders that I want folks to work with. So basically what comes up here is driven completely by what my filter is over here. So if I just want to look at what I think I want to ship perhaps this week and next week, or just this week, or today or tomorrow, up come my orders. I change my quantities to ship. I change I fill my back orders. I print my items, got pick tickets. I'm off to the races. We recommend that most people that have stock issues, that don't always keep a lot of stock, and nobody wants to keep more than they need, that people always honor the quantity to ship in Macola, or that they set all quantities to ship to be 0 as they take that order, and then come in to manage the orders in order to fill those back orders from here. It can be a much more effective way than shuffling pick tickets and trying to decide what should ship tomorrow. So this is the pick management grid that we have. So we've covered those quick different ways of vouchering and pick management. Now, so the question then becomes, okay, yep, sorry.
And we did actually have a couple of questions that came up during that that particular segment. One is asking a question about printing pick tickets. Can Agility only print the pick tickets out of the box, or can it also print the ones that we've worked with our reseller to print for our internal pick tickets?
Oh, no. It will print whatever pick ticket you want. In fact, you could even have different pick tickets looking in different ways for different customers, Greg. So no, it will print whatever crystal pick ticket you want it to print, or different styles of pick tickets if you need.
Nice. There was a question that came in over chat. Let me pull that up. Where am I? There it is. Is the pick management screen updated when an order is placed? Is it automatically updated when an order is placed?
They'd have to refresh it. That's all.
Okay. And
they
then
set it to auto refresh.
And then do all the column headings allow for a sort?
Yes, every single one of them. Every
Awesome.
single one of them. Yep. Let me go back to it here. Yep, I could sort by item number. In fact, what I could do is I could start typing an item number here and filter as well as sort. So I have sorts and filters here. And I can group in different ways too. So there's a lot. I didn't want to get into, showing all the different capabilities of the grid, because that might take more time than you want to, Greg. But there's tremendous power here to control what you're looking at on the screen and make it useful to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else on the pick management side?
No further questions on that segment.
Okay. So let's talk very briefly then about how we are creating all of this and how you can create this as a Macola user. When you purchase the WiSys Agility Adaptable Framework, you get all these different applications out of the box. They're all created with SQL. So if you have knowledge about Macola tables, if you can write crystal reports and you understand the relationships between things like the order header and the order line and the purchase order header and the PO line and the customer table, or CSIMPI, depending on what version you're working with, then you can take the project information, the applications we ship out of the box, and copy them and make your own views if you want to, create your own capabilities, involve other logic that you want to in terms of creating what the view presents to you and what kind of rules you use. So the tool that does that, which is included in the framework, is our Design Studio, Agility Design Studio. And it is what created all of the applications that we just looked at. We looked at, 4 different applications? There are probably 100 of them that come with the Agility framework. And this is just a little screenshot of the different kinds of components or applications you can create. So here's our calendar that we looked at. We looked at process grids. We looked at regular grids. We haven't talked about graphs or dialogues or gauges or, we alluded to crystal reports. But all these are the different kind of components that you can actually run. So let's, for just 1 second, dash into Design Studio. So this is the Design Studio tool that creates what's on the menu in Agility Explorer. And I'm not going to get technical with this because I'm not a technical person. But let's just take a look at this. So here's that daily order total calendar application that we started out with, right? Let's right-click that and let's edit it. And let's look at what goes into the creation of this. This comes with your product. So you have this, and it's going to bring up a list of options, and it basically has a wizard that it will walk you through so that you have a SQL query. This is a fairly complex SQL query because of the way it's grouping things based on order. But it lets you look at the data, that's going to come up so you can preview the data. It lets you create the filter that goes into creating this. This is where properties are set so that you can accommodate the difference between the order number types and the customer types in ES and progression. We've normalized all of that for you so that you can easily switch from progression to ES or M10. So there's a little wizard that takes you through how to link all of this together. And remember when the question was asked about setting the value and whether you got the little blue star to appear? Here's where you have the ability to control that and control the image that you actually see based on the value that is plopped into the field for that grid. So this is actually how you step through to create something, and you can take our application, copy it to your own, and then make your own changes to it. So you'll always have the generic one, but you can also have your own customized one. So this is actually the tool that creates those applications. So when I create a new component, that was that list that I just showed you a minute ago in the PowerPoint slide. And that comes with the framework. This and Agility Explorer all come with the framework. Okay, questions about any of this? I'm very close.
Nothing came through.
Done. Okay, all right. So we do have videos on our website, and I'd like to show that to you just briefly. We launched a new website this week. For those of you that aren't accustomed to seeing this website, this was just launched this week. And we have a support section and documentation here. And in the documentation section, there is a section for the adaptable framework and for Design Studio, which is the design tool. And here's a link to the different videos that we have. So if you want to take a look at this and figure out how to create your own grids, how to create your own calendars, how to create your own process grids, filters, there's about 4 hours worth of videos in little bits. You can see 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes here. So we've got good information for you on the web to learn how to use the tool. So what comes in the WiSys toolkit? This is kind of an ancient slide, but it's kind of cute. So let's open the toolbox and see what we have. We have a tool we haven't talked about today called Form Studio. Then we have a tool called Design Studio that we looked at. We have our SDK, which is the business objects, and then we have shipping and our warehouse management system, POP, and shop floor tools. The point of this whole slide is that real companies need real-time information, and to get real-time information and real-time reporting, you have to have real-time data. So you have to have flexible, dynamic tools to work with. And that's what we want to provide for everybody that uses Macola. We want you to be able to stay ahead of your competition. We want you to be able to grow your companies faster without adding overhead, to solve challenges more easily, and above all, to be able to improve and streamline so that you become the very best company that you can be. So what can we do for you? We know that virtually every company is unique. So we want to partner with you and your business partner to help you solve the challenges you have today and create opportunities for tomorrow. We want you to be able to tailor your Macola system so you don't have to tailor yourself to it. So we recognize the fact that people must differentiate themselves from their competition. As competition gets harder and harder, as more and more people across the world need your products, we want you to be able to compete effectively. So we want you to be able to rapidly build and deploy things that help your folks run your business. That's what this is all about. Agile tools for agile businesses, challenges solved. And that's all I've got, Greg.
Thank you so much. And we do have a couple other questions that came in. Ian, I apologize, I missed your question. Are there any other pre-created tools or reports in the Agility application? And then is there a list of them available anywhere?
Yes, there is. And yes, there are many. Like I think I mentioned, there are probably 100 or more applications. This was 4 that I cherry picked. So I have a menu system along the side that we really didn't use. These are all the applications for inventory, issues and receipts, views of your item master, graphs of top selling items, bin master lists, inventory transactions. We have a whole family of cycle counting reports so that you can look at the value of your cycle count and how much you were off and what the status of your tags is. This is a whole slew of different views here, depending on how you cycle count. There's a whole section for order management and order processing, order views, order status, pick management, pick ticket cleanup. You can do your invoicing and your billing. You can even void invoices here and have it right to your audit trail. Again, order acknowledgments. So there's a lot, and it's all documented out on our website. Purchase order, pick-pack is our shipping system. Then there are pop and shop floor capabilities too.
One question with regards to customizations. I guess this individual, within their Macola system, they have some customizations as far as what their order statuses are, and they are asking if Agility can be customized basically to match those customizations within Macola.
Absolutely, as long as it's in a SQL table. In fact, we have customers that have side systems, Greg, that aren't in Macola, but they're in SQL tables, and we link that data together and show it to them on grids. So as long as it's in SQL, we can get to it, because that's all that this is SQL.
Oh, and then another question about multiple locations, multiple warehouses, which probably would cover both in the can build and the pick. Can Agility kind of identify, where inventory might be if it's in one location or another location to help with, putting together orders and whatnot?
Yep, absolutely. So here I'm back on the inventory location master that had the can build. And if I filter based on location, now I'm just looking at locations that begin with CA or CAR. I've got inspection and receiving locations, things like that. But I mean, yes, absolutely. Pick management also lets me filter by location. So I could run pick tickets for another location. Absolutely.
And then the only other question that came in over chat before I open up everyone's phone lines, I noticed this too, is that when you were doing like the purchase order, trying to basically replenish stock so you can fulfill an order, the vendor was already pre-selected. If they have multiple vendors for a specific part, can they choose which vendor they want to use on that PO?
I want to say yes. I don't know that I've ever tried to do that. My data happens to have default vendors set up. So I guess I would have to beg off and say I'm not sure, but I can find out. It wouldn't be hard to do that.
Okay. And so that covers the chat questions. I am going to go ahead and open up everyone's phone lines so we can have an open discussion if anyone has any questions they want to ask Ann directly. I just ask that if you don't have a question, self-mute your phone so we don't get overwhelmed by background noise. So at this point, the phone lines are open. If anyone has any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace, so to speak. Crickets. We did cover a lot of questions during the presentation, so not necessarily too surprising. And I guess, did I hear something? No? All right, well, I think we must have covered everything throughout the course of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and send big thank you to Ann for joining us today and helping us out to present this webinar today. I want to thank everyone who joined us on the call. And you can see on this last slide, Ann's contact information, the Ativo Group's contact information. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Like I said, we can make the slide deck available, and the recording should be available tomorrow as well. So thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Ann, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Greg.